The trick to sounding fluent. Always explain why. Welcome, everyone, to the English Talk Show podcast. I'm truly excited to have you here today, no matter where you are listening from in the world. Whether you are in Africa, Asia, Europe, or the Americas, I want you to know that this podcast is designed to help you take your English fluency to the next level. Every episode is a chance for you to not just learn English, but to practice thinking in English, to interact with ideas, and to train yourself to communicate more naturally. So wherever you are tuning in from, welcome, and thank you for being part of this global community of learners. Today's focus is very special because it deals with one simple trick that can transform the way you sound when you speak English. The truth is that many students understand English, they study vocabulary, and they know grammar rules. But when it comes to speaking, they feel stuck, their sentences sound short, and conversations often stop too quickly. The secret to solving this problem is learning how to always explain why. Whenever you give an answer, whenever you share an opinion, whenever you describe your choices, you need to add reasons. The simple act of saying because and giving 1, 2, or even 3 reasons immediately makes your English richer, more natural, and much more engaging. That is the real trick to sounding fluent. Throughout this episode, I will show you exactly how to use this method. We will look at 3 main benefits of always explaining why. The first is that it creates natural conversation flow, which means you will never be stuck giving boring, short answers that kill the conversation. The second is that it shows critical thinking, so your English will sound smarter, more thoughtful, and more impressive to the people listening to you. And the third is that it builds deeper connections, because when you explain your reasons, you give people something to relate to, something to connect with, and a chance to continue the conversation. By the end of this episode, you will know how to use this trick in your daily conversations, and you will feel more confident speaking English with anyone. Before we dive in, I want to invite you to be part of our community. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so, because every week I share practical tips and interactive exercises that help you grow step by step. Also, I would love to know where you are listening from. Leave a comment or send me a message with your city and your country. I always give shout-outs to listeners around the world, and it's a wonderful way to see how connected we are as a global learning family.
One of the first things I want to talk about today is the way short answers kill conversations. Think about a time when someone asked you a simple question, like, "What do you do for fun?" or "What's your favorite type of food?" and you answered with just a few words. Maybe you said, "I like pizza," or "I watch movies." What happened next? Most of the time, the other person didn't know how to respond, the energy dropped, and the conversation ended almost immediately. That is exactly what happens when we limit ourselves to short, basic answers. We close the door instead of opening it. A short answer is like putting a full stop too early, while a longer answer with reasons is like putting a comma that allows the conversation to continue naturally. In English, fluency is not only about knowing the right words or having a perfect accent. Fluency is about keeping the conversation alive, keeping the ball rolling, and giving the other person something they can work with. Let's look at our first example, food preferences. Imagine someone asks you, "What kind of food do you like?" A typical learner might respond with something very basic. "I love Italian food." Now, is that wrong? Not at all. Grammatically, it's fine. It communicates the idea. But does it sound fluent? Does it create conversation? Not really. It's like giving a one-word answer, even though you used 4 words. The listener doesn't have much to react to. Maybe they could ask, "Which dish?" Or just say, "Me too." And then, silence. The opportunity for connection is lost. Now let's try again, but this time we add reasons. Instead of saying, "I love Italian food," we can say, "I love Italian food because the fresh ingredients are always high quality. The cooking methods are simple but effective, and the dishes have the perfect balance of flavors." Do you hear the difference? Suddenly, it's not just a statement, it's a story. It's a mini conversation in itself. And the listener has so many possible ways to continue. They could ask, "Which ingredients are your favorite?" Or, "What Italian dish do you enjoy the most?" Or even, "Have you ever traveled to Italy?" One simple because has transformed the conversation from a dead end into an open door. Let's continue with another example. Career choices. Imagine a student, or maybe even you, saying, "I want to become a teacher." That's a solid answer, but it doesn't invite curiosity. It doesn't explain motivation. It doesn't show passion. Now, imagine you expand it. "I want to become a teacher because I love helping others learn, I enjoy creating engaging lesson plans, and I want to make a positive impact on students' futures." Can you feel how much more powerful that sounds? Suddenly, you're not just giving information, you're revealing personality, values, and goals. You are painting a picture of yourself. And of course, the listener now has endless ways to respond. They could ask, "What age group do you want to teach?" Or, "What subject inspires you the most?" Or even, "How was your favorite teacher when you were a student?" Instead of ending the dialogue, you have created an opportunity for deeper conversation. This is the true meaning of fluency, not just speaking, but inviting connection. Before we continue, let me tell you something very important. You understand English, right? But when it's time to speak, nothing comes out. The problem isn't grammar, it's practice. You just need more speaking practice. The truth is, if you don't use English, you'll never become fluent. With the English Conversation Guide, you practice real dialogues, introductions, travel, meetings, even small talk. With audio, you can repeat anytime, anywhere. Soon, your brain stops translating and starts thinking in English. That's when fluency happens. Think of it like a gym for your speaking muscles. A few minutes every day, and English starts to flow. Get the English Conversation Guide and finally speak with confidence.
Now, let's take another example, this time about opinions, which is something you'll be asked about often in conversations. Imagine someone asks, "Did you like the movie?" And you reply, "The movie wasn't good." That's short, direct, and honestly a little boring. It doesn't tell me anything about you. It doesn't give me insight into your thinking, your tastes, or your reasoning. It also doesn't give me space to ask further questions. But what if you said, "I didn't enjoy the movie because the acting was poor, the storyline was confusing, and the ending made no sense"? That answer is so much richer. It invites debate and discussion. The listener now wants to ask, "Which part of the acting was weak?" Or, "What confused you most about the story?" Or even, "Do you usually enjoy this type of movie?" Instead of a dead-end comment, you now have a lively conversation starter. Do you notice the pattern? In every case, food, career, opinions, the basic answer was not wrong, but it was flat. It was like a balloon with no air. By adding reasons, you fill the balloon, you bring life to the conversation, and you make your English sound natural, thoughtful, and truly fluent. And here is something very important. When you explain your reasons, you don't need perfect vocabulary. You don't need fancy words. What matters is giving the listener something meaningful to respond to. That's why I always tell my students, fluency isn't about speaking fast or using complicated vocabulary. Fluency is about creating flow. Flow means your conversation moves forward without awkward stops. And the easiest way to create flow is to always explain why. Now, I want to pause here and turn this back to you. Think of a simple question you've answered recently. Maybe someone asked, "What's your favorite color?" Or, "Do you like sports?" Or, "Where do you usually go on weekends?" How did you answer? Did you give just one word? Did you say blue, or yes, or the park? If you did, then you probably noticed the conversation didn't go far. But what if you tried again using the why method? For example, instead of saying blue, you could say, "My favorite color is blue because it reminds me of the ocean, it makes me feel calm, and it looks good with almost any outfit." That's a whole new answer, right? Instead of saying, "Yes, I like sports," you could say, "Yes, I like sports because they keep me active, I love the team spirit, and they help me manage stress after a busy day." Or instead of just "the park," you could say, "I usually go to the park on weekends because it's relaxing, I enjoy watching people walk their dogs, and it gives me a break from technology." In every case, you take a short, boring answer and transform it into a conversation starter. So here's my challenge to you right now. Pause this podcast for a moment and pick one question you often hear in English. Maybe it's, "What's your favorite food?" Or, "What do you do?" Or, "Why are you learning English?" Now, instead of giving the short version, try expanding it. Say it out loud if you can. Add at least 2 or 3 reasons. Don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about whether your grammar is 100% correct. Just focus on giving reasons. And when you're done, notice how much more fluent you sounded, how much more confident your voice became, and how many more possibilities for conversation you created. That is the magic of creating flow. If you practice this regularly, you'll start to see a big change in your English conversations. People will listen longer, they'll ask you more follow-up questions, and you'll feel less pressure because you're not stuck searching for a single perfect word. Instead, you'll be sharing your thoughts with reasons, and those reasons will naturally extend the conversation. That's why this first step, learning how to create flow by always explaining why, is one of the most powerful tools you can use to sound fluent in English.
Now that we have seen how adding reasons creates flow in a conversation, let's move to the second major benefit of always explaining why. This benefit is something that not only improves your English, but also makes you appear smarter, more thoughtful, and more confident. It is the skill of showing critical thinking. When people hear the phrase critical thinking, they often imagine something complicated, maybe something academic, or even too intellectual. But the truth is, critical thinking in daily English simply means showing that you have thought carefully about your choices, your opinions, and your actions. It is about revealing the reasons behind what you say, instead of leaving your listener with a simple, flat answer. And here is the beautiful part. Every time you add a "because," you are showing critical thinking in action. You are saying, "I didn't just pick this randomly. I have reasons. I have thought about it." This immediately changes the way people see you when you speak. Instead of sounding like a beginner who just gives short responses, you sound like someone with depth, with clarity, and with a mind that considers different aspects of a situation. That is impressive in any language, but especially when you are learning English. Let's look at a clear example to see this in practice. Imagine a common situation. Someone asks you, Why did you choose this university? Many learners might answer very briefly, because it's good, or because it's famous. Again, this answer is not wrong, but it's too vague and doesn't show much thinking. It makes the speaker sound like they didn't really consider their choice carefully. But if you expand and share multiple reasons, you reveal critical thinking. For example, I chose this university because it has an excellent reputation for research, it offers generous scholarships, and it is located in a vibrant city with many job opportunities. Do you hear the difference? Suddenly, you're not just saying you picked a university, you're showing the thought process, the analysis, and the weighing of different factors. That's critical thinking in simple daily English. And of course, it invites further questions. What will you study there? Have you applied for the scholarship already? Or what do you like about the city? Instead of the conversation ending, it is now enriched, more engaging, and more impressive. Let's consider another example, this time related to lifestyle and habits. Suppose someone asks, "Do you exercise?" The basic answer might be, "Yes. I started exercising regularly." That is a fine answer, but it doesn't reveal much about you. Now imagine you answer with reasons. I started exercising regularly because it boosts my productivity at work, it helps me manage my anxiety, and it keeps me healthy. With just a few extra words, you have transformed your response into a demonstration of critical thinking. You didn't just say yes or no, you explained your decision. You showed that you thought about the benefits, that you noticed the effects in your own life, and that you made a conscious choice. That makes you sound more confident, more intelligent, and also more relatable. The listener might then ask, "What type of exercise do you do?" Or, "How often do you go to the gym?" Or even, "Can you give me some tips for managing stress?" Your answer becomes the foundation for a deeper exchange.
Here is the interesting part. When you give these kinds of answers, you are not only practicing English, you are also practicing the skill of reflecting on your own life. You're learning to pause and think about why you do what you do. And this reflection makes your conversations richer, because you are bringing more of yourself into them. You are not just exchanging words, you are exchanging ideas, experiences, and reasoning. That is what impresses people, whether they are native speakers or fellow learners. They see you as someone who communicates with clarity and purpose. Now, I want to pause and give you a mini practice exercise. Think of one decision you made recently. It doesn't have to be big. It could be choosing what to eat for breakfast, buying a new phone, or deciding how to spend your weekend. First, say the short version of your answer. For example, "I bought a new phone," or "I went hiking on Sunday." Now, expand it with at least 2 or 3 reasons. Try something like, "I bought a new phone because my old one was too slow, the battery was dying quickly, and the new model has a better camera that I need for my work." Or, "I went hiking on Sunday because I wanted to get fresh air, I enjoy being close to nature, and it helps me clear my mind after a busy week." Do you see how that sounds completely different? The short answer is just a piece of information, but the longer one with reasons reveals your thought process. It shows that you have considered multiple factors. That's critical thinking in action. Take a moment now, maybe even pause this episode, and practice. Choose one decision in your life and explain it with reasons. Don't worry about perfect grammar or pronunciation. Just focus on giving your why. When you come back, notice how much more fluent you sounded when you explained your choice. That exercise is simple, but if you repeat it daily, your ability to think in English and explain yourself clearly will grow very quickly. So why does this matter? Why does showing critical thinking make conversations richer and more impressive? The answer is that people are naturally curious. They don't just want to know what you did, they want to know why you did it. They don't just want to hear your opinion, they want to understand the reasoning behind it. When you give reasons, you feed that natural curiosity. You give your listener more to work with, more to connect with, and more to ask about. And when people see that you can express not only your actions, but also your thinking in English, they respect you more. They see you as someone capable of meaningful conversation. That respect builds your confidence, and that confidence builds your fluency. It's a cycle that starts with one simple step. Always explain why. This is why I call critical thinking the second pillar of sounding fluent. It's not about fancy words, it's not about speed, it's about showing depth. It's about proving through your answers that you are a thoughtful person who can express not just surface-level information, but also deeper reasoning. And when you master this, your conversations will feel completely different. Instead of feeling stuck, instead of running out of things to say, you will have a natural flow of ideas, and people will genuinely enjoy talking to you.
When we think about creating deeper connections in our conversations, one of the most powerful tools we have is the simple act of explaining the reasons behind our answers. Many people believe fluency is just about speaking quickly or without hesitation, but true fluency is much more than speed. Real fluency is about building meaning, opening the door to empathy, and creating shared ground with the other person. When you share not only what you think, but also why you think that way, you invite someone into your world. You give them a chance to understand your experiences, values, and perspectives. This is what makes conversations feel alive, natural, and human. Take hobbies, for example. Imagine someone asks you about your interests and you reply, "I play guitar." That's a short, correct answer, but it doesn't give much for the conversation to grow on. The other person might say, "That's cool," and then silence follows. Now compare that with this answer. "I play guitar because it helps me relax after a stressful day. I also love how music connects people, and sometimes I play at family gatherings to make the atmosphere more fun." This answer is still simple, but now it has reasons. Suddenly, you're not just telling someone you play guitar, you're showing them how music fits into your life, your personality, your family, and your idea of joy. This creates empathy. The listener might think, "I also play an instrument to relax," or "I know what you mean about music connecting people." With reasons, you build shared ground. Let's try another situation. Lifestyle preferences. Suppose someone asks if you prefer living in the city or in the countryside. A short answer would be, "I prefer living in the city." It's clear, but it stops there. Now add reasons. "I prefer living in the city because everything is close: shops, work, and entertainment. I also enjoyed the diversity of people you can meet in an urban environment. And I love the energy of city life. It always inspires me." See the difference? Suddenly, you're not just telling someone you prefer the city, you're showing them your lifestyle, your values, and even your personality. Maybe they connect with your love of diversity, or maybe they'll say, "That's interesting. I prefer the countryside because it's calmer." Either way, reasons create a bridge. You're not just answering, you're inviting dialogue. A third example comes from cultural interests. Let's say someone asks, "Why are you learning Korean?" If you answer, "Because it's interesting," the conversation will probably end. But imagine answering like this: I'm learning Korean because I love Korean dramas, and I want to understand them without subtitles. I also admire Korean culture, the traditions, the food, the way respect is shown in daily life. And honestly, learning a new language makes me feel more connected to the world. Here, your answer paints a picture of your passion. The listener can see your interest in media, your cultural curiosity, and even your worldview. That creates empathy and possibly a deeper connection if the other person also enjoys international culture. So here is the principle. Reasons build empathy. When you explain your answers with reasons, you're not just giving information, you're sharing a piece of your story. And people connect with stories much more than with facts. This is why, in language learning, practicing giving reasons is one of the fastest ways to sound more fluent and engaging. Now, let's turn this into practice. Imagine you're in a conversation and someone asks you about your hobbies. Instead of stopping with one word, expand it. Pick one hobby and add 3 reasons. For example, I like painting because it helps me express emotions that are hard to put into words. I also enjoy the creative process, starting with a blank canvas and building something beautiful. And finally, painting allows me to disconnect from stress, almost like meditation. Here's a short listener practice for you. Pause for a moment, think about one of your hobbies, and try to expand it with 3 reasons. Take your time, say it out loud, and notice how your explanation feels richer and more interesting. Imagine how the other person would react. They might ask questions, share their own story, or even connect with you on an emotional level. That's how deeper conversations are born. The key lesson is this: reasons turn short answers into meaningful dialogue. They make you sound more fluent, more authentic, and more relatable. The more you practice explaining your why, the easier it becomes to build bridges with people, no matter where they come from. Fluency doesn't mean saying many words quickly. Fluency means saying enough for someone to truly understand and connect with you.
Imagine we are now moving into the most practical part of our session together. Everything we have discussed so far, the importance of explaining why, of showing your thought process, of building connection, comes to life here in real conversation. In this section, I will play both roles. I will ask you questions, and I will also model answers. But here's the key difference from ordinary practice. You will be challenged to pause the recording or reading at certain points and give your own answers out loud. Yes, out loud. Because fluency only grows when your mouth, your voice, and your brain are working together in real time. Let's start simple, with a common question. What's your favorite season? If you answer only with summer or winter, the conversation dies instantly. But if you give reasons, it flows. For example, my favorite season is summer, first because I enjoy the longer days and the sunlight makes me feel more energetic. Second, I love summer foods like fresh fruit, cold drinks, and barbecue with friends. And third, summer always feels like a time for adventure. I travel, I go outside more, and I feel free. Now notice what happened. By explaining my reasons, I gave 3 new directions for the listener to continue the conversation. We can talk about sunlight, food, or travel. That is how conversations expand naturally. Now it's your turn. Pause, say your favorite season, and try to add at least 3 reasons. Let's try another example. What kind of books do you enjoy reading? Again, the short answer might be novels or history books. That's too little. But let me model. I really enjoy reading novels. First, because they allow me to step into another world and experience life from a different perspective. Second, reading novels helps me improve my imagination and my creativity. I often picture the characters and places as if I were there. And third, novels actually improve my English because I get to see how sentences and dialogues are built in a natural way. Once again, there are at least 3 new doors to explore: perspectives, imagination, and language learning. Now pause here. Answer out loud, what kind of books do you like and why? Give at least 3 reasons.
Now, let's move to a deeper and more personal question. Why are you learning English? This question is one of the most important for you to master, because almost every English speaker you meet will ask you this at some point. The weak answer is, for my job. The strong answer is, I'm learning English because first, it's the global language of communication, and I want to connect with people from all over the world. Second, English gives me access to better opportunities in my career and education. And third, I enjoy learning it because it makes me feel more confident when I travel and more independent when I consume international media. Do you see how this answer not only shows motivation, but also creates curiosity and connection? Now it's your turn. Pause and explain clearly why you are learning English. Remember to give 3 reasons. Finally, let's consider another important question. What career do you want to pursue? The answer, teacher or engineer, is not enough. Here's a model. I want to become a teacher. First, because I enjoy helping other people learn, and watching their progress motivates me. Second, I believe teaching makes a big difference in society, because education changes lives. And third, teaching is a career where I can keep learning myself. It's not just about giving knowledge, it's also about constantly improving. This answer is so much more powerful than a single word, right? Now take a pause and say your own career choice with 3 reasons to support it. What you should notice by now is that every time you explain why, you create space for curiosity, empathy, and new questions. If you say, my favorite season is summer because I love the food, the other person might ask, oh, really? What kind of food do you eat in the summer? If you say, I'm learning English because I want to travel, the other person might ask, where do you want to travel first? This is the magic of conversations. Your reasons open new doors, and the more doors you open, the more fluent, natural, and interesting you sound. Here's my challenge for you. Over the next few days, practice giving 3 reasons whenever someone asks you a question. It doesn't matter if the question is simple or deep, about food, hobbies, goals, or even personal feelings. Each time, try to explain why. At first, it might feel slow or unnatural, but soon you will notice how much more confident and fluent you become. Always remember this simple rule. Each why invites follow-up questions. The more reasons you give, the more the other person wants to know. That is how conversations grow. That is how connections deepen. And that is how you sound truly fluent. Pro tips for fluency. One of the most powerful and practical techniques to sound fluent in English is to make your answers longer and richer by giving reasons. This means not just saying yes or no, or even one short phrase, but instead taking a few extra seconds to explain your opinion, preference, or choice. The most important tool for doing this is the word because. Anytime you use because, you are giving a reason, and reasons are what create fluency. A short answer might give information, but an expanded answer with reasons shows your thought process, your personality, and your ability to communicate clearly in English. A very effective rule to follow is this. Whenever someone asks you a question, try to answer with at least 2 or 3 reasons. One reason is good, but 2 or 3 reasons show depth and make your English sound confident and natural. For example, imagine someone asks you, "Why do you enjoy reading?" Instead of replying, "Because it's relaxing," you could say, "I enjoy reading because it relaxes my mind after a busy day, because it gives me new knowledge, and because it helps me improve my vocabulary in English." This answer suddenly transforms you into someone interesting to listen to, someone who communicates with substance and flow. Another tip is to vary the way you begin your sentences. Many learners overuse the phrase, "I think." Of course, "I think" is useful, but if every sentence begins with "I think," the conversation can feel repetitive. Try to use different sentence starters like "I believe," "I feel," "I suppose," "in my opinion," or even "from my experience." Each of these small variations adds richness to your speaking style and makes you sound more natural, just like a native speaker who mixes different expressions depending on the situation. For example, instead of always saying, "I think exercise is important," you could say, "I believe exercise is essential for both physical and mental health," or, "From my experience, working out regularly gives me energy throughout the day." These small changes make a big difference in how fluent and confident you sound. In addition to reasons and sentence starters, you should also practice using connectors. Connectors are words or phrases that link your ideas together so your speaking flows more smoothly. Some useful connectors are moreover, furthermore, as a result, on the other hand, for example, and in other words. By adding these, you create a logical structure in your answers, which not only makes you more fluent, but also makes your English sound more professional and academic when needed. For instance, if someone asks, "Why do you like podcasts?" you might answer, "I like podcasts because they are convenient when I'm traveling. Moreover, they cover a wide variety of topics, so I can learn something new every day. Furthermore, they help me improve my listening skills in English, since I hear different accents and speaking styles." Notice how the connectors make the answer smooth and connected, like a short presentation instead of a broken list of reasons.
Let's practice a live demo example together. Why do podcasts matter? If I answer simply, I might say, podcasts matter because they are useful. But that's too short. Now, let me expand using our fluency techniques. Podcasts matter because they are one of the most accessible forms of education. I believe they are important because they allow people to learn while doing other things, such as driving, cooking, or exercising. Moreover, podcasts matter because they give a voice to people around the world who would not normally have a platform to share their ideas. Furthermore, they create communities of listeners who share the same interests, which helps people feel connected even across different countries. As a result, Podcasts are not just a form of entertainment, but also a powerful tool for personal growth and global communication. Notice how this answer uses because, three clear reasons, different sentence starters, and connectors like moreover, furthermore, and as a result. This combination gives your English depth, rhythm, and impact. Think about how you can apply this technique to your own life. When someone asks you about your hobbies, don't stop at, I like soccer. Instead, try, I like soccer because it keeps me healthy, because it helps me release stress, and because it's a great way to meet new people. Furthermore, I feel that soccer teaches teamwork and discipline, which are useful in everyday life. Suddenly, you have given the other person more to connect with, and you sound fluent without even trying too hard. Another way to use these tips is in professional or academic contexts. Imagine you are in a job interview, and someone asks, "Why do you want this job?" A short answer like, "Because I need money," will not impress anyone. But if you answer, "I want this job because it matches my skills and interests, because I believe I can contribute to the team with my experience, and because I feel this company's mission aligns with my personal values. Moreover, I see opportunities here to grow and develop professionally, which motivates me even more." This type of structured, fluent answer shows maturity, confidence, and readiness. It is exactly the kind of answer that can set you apart from other candidates. Let's pause here for a moment. Imagine yourself in a real conversation. How would your English change if you always added reasons, varied your sentence starters, and used connectors? You would never sound robotic. You would never sound like someone who memorizes textbook phrases. Instead, you would sound like someone who thinks, reasons, and explains naturally in English. You would be the kind of person others enjoy listening to because you make every answer feel like a conversation, not just a transaction of information. To summarize these pro tips for fluency, always use because and give at least 2 or 3 reasons. Vary your sentence starters so your answers sound dynamic. Use connectors to link your ideas smoothly and logically. Practice with real questions from your own life. Favorite food, favorite place, career choice, daily routines. And apply these techniques every time you speak. By mastering these small but powerful habits, you will transform your English from short, hesitant answers into rich, confident conversations. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. And soon this way of speaking will feel completely natural. Remember, fluency is not about speed. It is about flow, structure, and clarity. Every time you add a reason, every time you use a connector, every time you vary your sentence starter, you are not just practicing English, you are practicing the art of communication.
Real-life scenarios and listener example. When we think about fluency and conversation skills, we often imagine the classroom or maybe an online practice session. But the truth is, conversations come alive in real-life scenarios. The way you answer in a casual chat, in a professional setting, or when you meet someone new can completely shape the impression you leave behind. Let's explore some real situations where your ability to expand, give reasons, and connect with others will make you stand out, not just as an English speaker, but as someone others genuinely enjoy talking to. Scenario 1. Meeting new people.
Imagine you are meeting someone for the very first time. Maybe it's at a social gathering, at a party, or even through a friend. Someone asks you, "So, what do you like to do in your free time?" This is one of the most common questions we get when meeting new people. Now, think about it. If you answer with just, "I like reading," or "I like sports," the conversation dies right there. It doesn't move anywhere, and the other person doesn't have much material to continue with. But if you say, "I like reading because it helps me escape from stress, it gives me new perspectives, and I especially enjoy biographies because they teach me real lessons from other people's lives," suddenly you've created space. Now the other person can ask, "What kind of stress are you escaping from?" Or, "Whose biography have you read recently?" Or even, "Do you also enjoy fiction?" You've turned a dead-end answer into an open door. Meeting new people is not only about saying what you like, it's about giving them reasons to connect with you on a deeper level. Every reason you add is like offering them a stepping stone to continue walking with you in the conversation. Scenario 2. Networking events. Now let's move to a different but equally important situation, professional networking. Maybe you're at a business event, a career fair, or a seminar. Someone might ask you, "Why did you choose this career?" Or, "What are your professional interests?" Again, short answers kill the opportunity. If you simply say, "I want to be a teacher," that's a conversation ender. But if you expand, it changes everything. You could say, "I chose teaching because I feel education is one of the most powerful ways to create change. I also enjoy the challenge of simplifying complex ideas, and moreover, I love the feeling when students finally understand something they struggled with." Notice how that answer not only tells your career, but also highlights your values, your personality, and your passion. And in professional settings, that's what makes people remember you.
Scenario 3. Casual chats with friends. Now, let's move to something more relaxed. Conversations with friends. You might think, "I don't need to expand too much with friends. They already know me." But actually, friends often deepen their bond through the way they share thoughts and reasons. For example, imagine your friend asks, "Do you want to watch a movie tonight?" You could just say, "Yes," or "No." But imagine instead you say, "Yes, because I really need to relax. I've had a stressful week, and movies always make me feel better. Plus, if it's action, it keeps me awake and excited." That makes your friend smile, because now they understand you better, and might even choose a movie that matches your mood. Or if you say, "No, not today, because I'm trying to go to bed early. I've been waking up too tired, and tomorrow I have something important to do." Your friend also understands your priorities. Notice how giving reasons doesn't only enrich formal conversations, but also strengthens the daily ones. It shows honesty, it gives context, and it builds understanding. Listener example, Maria from Lisbon. Now let's bring in a listener example. Maria from Lisbon wrote to me saying she used to always give short answers and wondered why her conversations never flowed. She told me that when people asked, "What do you do?" she would just say, "I'm a student." End of story. People would politely nod, and the conversation would move away from her. But after practicing the 3 reasons rule, she started expanding. Now she says something like, "I'm a student and I'm studying architecture because I've always been fascinated by buildings and how they shape people's lives. I also enjoy the creative side of drawing and design, and furthermore, I believe sustainable architecture can change the future of our cities. Suddenly, people are intrigued. They start asking her about her projects, about what sustainability means in architecture, about which famous architects inspire her. Maria told me that not only do her conversations last longer, but she feels people respect her more and see her as someone thoughtful and interesting. That's the power of expanding with reasons. It transforms how others perceive you. So now I want to invite you, the listener, to do the same. Think about one real-life scenario. Maybe you're meeting someone new. Maybe you're at a professional networking event. Or maybe you're just talking to your best friend. Pick one question that someone might ask you, and then practice giving your answer with at least 2 or 3 reasons. Don't just say, "I like football." Say, "I like football because it gives me exercise, it teaches teamwork, and it's also a way I bond with my friends on weekends." Don't just say, "I'm learning English." Say, "I'm learning English because it opens doors for my career. It allows me to connect with people around the world, and it gives me confidence when I travel." Do you see the difference? This is how you make your English not just fluent, but also rich, engaging, and alive. So here's my final challenge. Try it out and then share your version. I want to hear from you. Just like Maria from Lisbon sent me her example, you can send yours too. Tell me your scenario, your answer, and the 3 reasons you used. Not only will this help you practice, but it may also inspire someone else who listens. And remember, each reason is not just about filling words, it's about creating connections. The more reasons you give, the more doors you open for a conversation to grow naturally. That's how you turn English from a language you study into a bridge you use to connect with people everywhere.
As we begin to wrap up today's session, let's pause for a moment and reflect on the journey we've taken together. We started with the simple but powerful idea of building deeper connections through explanations, through sharing your why. Along the way, we discovered that giving reasons is not just about filling silence with extra words, but about creating bridges. These bridges connect your mind to someone else's, allowing them to see your thought process, your values, and your emotions. Before we close, I want to highlight 3 key benefits that this approach brings to your fluency and to your relationships. These are benefits you will carry with you not only in English conversations, but in life itself. The first benefit is flow. When you train yourself to expand your answers by giving 2 or 3 reasons, you naturally move beyond short, dry responses. Instead of saying, "I like summer," you might say, "I like summer because the days are longer, the mood feels lighter, and it gives me more energy to spend time outside." Suddenly, your English starts to flow. The rhythm of your sentences carries you forward. You find yourself speaking in full, natural paragraphs rather than broken fragments. This sense of flow is what makes conversations enjoyable and sustainable, both for you and for your listener. The second benefit is critical thinking. Explaining your reasons forces you to reflect more deeply on your choices and opinions. It challenges you to ask yourself, why do I prefer this? Why is this meaningful to me? This habit of digging into your own thoughts sharpens your ability to organize ideas logically, not only in English, but in your native language as well. Over time, you'll notice that your arguments become stronger, your explanations clearer, and your storytelling more convincing. You are no longer just speaking words, you are communicating meaning with depth and clarity. The third benefit is connection. This is perhaps the most beautiful result of all. When you give reasons, you allow other people to step into your world. They can recognize themselves in your experiences. They can empathize with your feelings, and they can respond in a way that goes beyond the surface. Think about it. If someone says, "I love reading because it helps me relax after stressful days, it makes me curious about the world, and it sparks my imagination," suddenly you have multiple directions for follow-up questions. You can ask about stress, curiosity, or imagination. This makes conversations richer and more meaningful. That's the power of connection through explanations. Now, I want to share with you a personal story that illustrates this point. A few years ago, I faced a difficult situation. It was my father's 60th birthday, a huge milestone. But I was living abroad at the time. Due to work commitments and distance, I couldn't travel home to be with my family. I remember feeling guilty and disappointed because birthdays, especially big ones like a 60, are not just numbers. They are markers of life, memory, and legacy. I didn't want my absence to feel like indifference, so I asked myself, how can I still create a connection even if I am far away?
I decided to prepare something special. I spent several nights recording a video message where I not only said happy birthday, but explained why he meant so much to me. I shared stories of how he had inspired me, how his patience shaped my character, and how his sacrifices gave me the opportunities I enjoyed today. I added photos, music, and even asked some relatives to record their own short messages so I could compile them into a kind of documentary about his life. When my family played the video during the party, my father was deeply moved. He told me later that he didn't just feel celebrated, he felt understood. That video showed him my why I admired him, why I appreciated him, and why I was grateful to be his son. That experience taught me something very important. Small gestures can have a big impact when they are filled with reasons, when they reveal the why behind the words. Just saying happy birthday would have been polite, but explaining why he mattered to me turned it into something unforgettable. And this is exactly what I want you to take away from today's lesson. Whether you are speaking English with a friend, a colleague, or even a stranger, don't just state your opinions or feelings. Add your reasons. Share your story. Let people see your why. That's how you create bonds that last. As we close, let's tie everything back to the method we've been exploring. The why method is simple but transformative. By giving 2 or 3 reasons in your responses, you achieve flow in your speech. You strengthen your critical thinking, and most importantly, you create real human connection. And remember, connection doesn't always require grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the small details, a thoughtful explanation, a story from your past, or a sentence that reveals your heart. These little things can brighten someone's day and open doors to deeper relationships. Before I say goodbye, let me give you a sneak peek of what's coming in the next episode. We will dive into the world of idioms for daily conversations. Idioms are those colorful, often playful expressions that native speakers use all the time, like break the ice, hit the nail on the head, or spill the beans. At first, they can sound confusing, but once you understand and start using them, they instantly make your English more natural and relatable. So stay tuned, because you won't want to miss that session. Finally, I want to leave you with a call to action. If you found today's lesson helpful, if you enjoyed reflecting on your reasons and exploring the power of why, then please subscribe to this podcast or channel. Share it with a friend who might also benefit from it. And take a moment to leave a comment telling us where you are listening from. I love hearing from people around the world. It reminds me of how language can connect us across borders, cultures, and experiences. And so, my friends, we come to the end of today's episode. Thank you for sharing your time and your attention with me. Remember, fluency is not about perfection. It is about connection. Keep practicing your reasons, keep expanding your answers, and keep showing your why. With every conversation, you are not just learning English, you are building bridges of understanding. Until next time, keep speaking fluently and explaining your why.